All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It is a Wednesday. It's the 4th day of March and the day after the primaries in 3 states. I'm not going to talk about Arkansas. I didn't talk about it yesterday with Arlen. I will mention the North Carolina race that we did address yesterday. That was the Nita Alam versus Valerie Fouché. Fouché, the incumbent. This is a rematch from 4 years ago. And very, very close. Looks like Fouché will survive, will remain in her position as representative there from North Carolina. But it also will very likely go to a recount because the difference less than 1 percentage point. So closer this time. Alam came a little closer, a lot closer than she did the first go round, and she did pretty well the first time. But looks like the establishment Democrat. And I don't mean that to be throwing shade on Fouché exactly. She's not been bad at all, but still she's part of that Democratic, I don't want to say leadership exactly, but the monolith, if you will. They circle the wagons around the party rather than showing real willingness to challenge it, to take on the party. And that's what we need. We need to move away from that partisanship, that naked party partisanship, and elect folks who are going to be American partisans, going to be working class partisans, peace partisans, environment partisans, not party partisans. The opening, let me see if I can get that on there. Yeah, so the slide deck or the thumbnail there, I put 5 candidates who are running, obviously, or who did run, in the primary and will be continuing to run, that the question, can they save our soul? And I kind of just took a little bit of an assortment of people who've struck me as potentially, I don't want to say saviors, although I use this term, save our soul, but we need saving. Our country absolutely needs saving, and it needs it from both parties, and certainly from the lawless violence, the warmongering, the ecocide from the current administration. We must address it. And the current Democrats are woefully incapable of doing so. So I put these 5 names up there. There's plenty of others I could have, but Cori Bush, I think, just really interesting because she's taking on Wes Bell, who defeated her with many, many millions, I think over 8 figures, right? Over 10 million AIPAC dollars it took Wes Bell to defeat Bush 2 years ago, and she's returning, hopefully, to defeat him. Graham Plattner's been, I think, just a very, very powerful voice for the working class in Maine, and he's just blowing Janet Mills, the establishment. I don't know, is fossil fair? I mean, she's in her late 70s. She seems clearly beyond, her salad days when she would be raring to go. Plattner obviously has to be the future of the party in Maine, and I think one of the leaders going forward. I put Butch Ware on. We need to have Greens in this coalition. There can't be just progressive Democrats. We've seen from the squad that there's no way that that Democrats alone, no matter how they describe themselves, position themselves, they're not going to ultimately reform and change the Democratic Party. Plattner seems to want to do it. I don't believe Democrats alone can. I think we need at this point a political revolution, which Bernie promised as an independent, did not deliver as a Democrat, as someone who supports the Democratic Party. Kat Abu Ghazaleh, I think, is fascinating. Illinois primaries coming up in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now. Can she win running overtly against ICE, against AIPAC? Can she win? And then Tallarico, yeah, he won yesterday. Pretty big win. Just under 7 points. It was narrowing towards the end when the Dallas County votes came in. But John King made the point that even if, there were some votes that didn't get counted from Dallas County because there were some confusion over where you were supposed to vote in Dallas County. Some residents may have gone to the wrong voting place. In fact, they did. Polls were kept open a couple of hours. that almost certainly negatively impacted on Jasmine Crockett's vote total, more so than on Tallarico's, because this was her most, this was her home grounds, right? Her stomping grounds, Dallas County. Still is a representative from Dallas County. But John King made the point there just weren't that many votes in Dallas County to overcome Tallarico's ultimate win, right? His ultimate margin of victory was significant enough that even if everyone that you kind of, you maximize the number of missing votes in Dallas County, and you use the same percentages that Crockett had won in that particular county, she still wouldn't have been able to come close enough to make you think she had a shot to win. So Tallarico declared the winner. And I think that's good. I think he was the better choice in Texas. I announced last week that I would have voted for him if I was in Texas. I think he has some legit progressive cred. I also think he ran a race that I'm more comfortable with than the one Crockett did. We'll hear from David Sirota, or at least read what David Sirota had to say about that. He's even more pro-Tallarico than I am, to be perfectly honest about this. I'd love to talk to you. 240-242-5646, 240-242-5646. Don't forget to click subscribe. I don't always put that like up, but let me put that up right now. That little thumb going up. Yeah, we'd love to see the like thumb any point. And also, what else I was going to say here is just any engagement, right? Any engagement with our videos here, comments, chat, what have you, is great, right? It just, all of it helps us cut through the algorithm the dreaded algorithm that everyone seems to talk about. Nobody, including me, knows what it is. So again, 240-242-5646. Let me see if I can get the video up so I can see what what folks are saying about our program today. Here is, let's start just with Texas. This was a big deal, right? I mean, Texas is I'm pretty certain it's the second largest state, maybe Florida, but I think Texas, 29 million people in Texas. I don't think Florida's anywhere near that. I think Florida may be around 20 million, New York State maybe 18 million. So, and I may have the numbers wrong there a little bit, but clearly this is an incredibly important state. And if Tallarico can win, and I think there's an outside shot, let's not rule it out, that would be a political earthquake. So there you see the numbers. Last count, Tallarico 52.8%, beating Crockett's 45.9% with 6.9. He's got 154,000 vote lead, and maybe there were, Dallas County, maybe 1 million people, and that, 700, 600,000 registered voters, 300,000 registered Dems. There's no way Crockett was going to make up 150,000 votes, not even, no way. So that's why Tallarico's clearly declared winner, even if the final margin of victory may narrow slightly. He got well over the 50%. What the Washington Post puts there, I think is accurate. We'll get into more details of this race. In fact, I'm going to go right to it. But I think just the thumbnail here is very fair. Tallarico's backers argued his populist, faith-inflected pitch would allow him to mount an unusually strong challenge to Republicans, while Crockett supporters said Democrats were hungry for her fiery approach to politics. I think the Tallarico backers had the better argument. I think that's part of the reason he won. If you looked at the map, John King on CNN, I always watch CNN for election results. They call it the magic board, and it's like the state, and then there's all the counties, and they're outlined, and then he can click on each county, and show you what the margins of victories are, and et cetera. It's really actually pretty cool. I have to say, I like watching it. It's pretty interesting. And he made the point that Tallarico did extremely well in Trump country and got, good numbers of votes. And in fact, more a significantly higher number of Texans voted in the Democratic primary than in the also contested Republican primary between the MAGA Ken Paxton Attorney General and very hard right, very corporate conservative John Cornyn. Cornyn looks like he may well survive. He won 40% last night, and there'll be a runoff. It's unclear who the challenger who lost is going to endorse. I believe his name is Wesley, just like Wesley Bell is. We're going to talk about him. He's the incumbent in Missouri. I forget Wesley's last name, but he is also MAGA. He's also a strong Trump backer. It's unclear if he will back Paxton. I think it would be surprising if he backed Cornyn, but he is a congressman, so we'll find out. Maybe he'll feel some sort of loyalty to his colleague who's a senator. I don't know. Again, love to talk to you, 240-242-5646. Let's start with the differences that I think were relevant between Crockett and Tallarico. And I think this is, by the way, not only a reason why I think Tallarico will be stronger, he is going to be in it. I think he likely would be a significantly stronger general election candidate. And, you can't keep race out of this. Tallarico's white. He's a man. You can't keep sex out of this. Crockett is a woman, a black woman. So are those facts relevant? I mean, I think so. Kamala Harris endorsed Crockett. I think part of that was from her base, maybe the K-Hive. Black women have been they were the most loyal supporters for Kamala Harris. Maybe she felt that she had kind of an obligation to back a black woman. I don't know. But I do find it somewhat ironic that many of Harris's supporters have argued that Harris lost because of racism, because of sexism. The country isn't ready for a black woman president. They were ready for a black male president, a black man president, meaning obviously Barack Obama, but maybe not a woman. It's interesting that they would argue that, and then in the same breath, which I think we heard from many Crockett supporters, well, you can't claim that Tallarico is more electable without being racist, that's a racist argument. Well, it's acknowledging, right, that there's bias. It's acknowledging there's voter bias. It's acknowledging that people tend to vote for folks who they think are more like they are. That's the response. Well, there are fewer African Americans in Texas than there are white people, so that will give slight disadvantage to Crockett. I mean, I think that's probably true. Now, can that be overcome? Absolutely. But Crockett ran as an extreme partisan. And here is what Silver says. So as an extreme partisan, meaning as an aggressive Democrat, in a state where there are more Republicans registered than Democrats. So you're running as an extreme Democrat. You're a minority candidate. I mean, that seems to me that puts you in a rough spot to win, because how are you going to win over those Republicans? That's number of Republicans and independents that you need to, if you have, as Silver says, Crockett was much, much more partisan than Tallarico. Partisanship he defines as, and I agree with this, loyalty and adherence to a political party or organized faction. So that partisanship, I think, would make it much harder for her to find common ground with Republicans and independents in Texas. I think he, meaning Tallarico, is going to be the stronger, will be a strong. I think he's be a strong, will he win? We hear that Texas is like the white whale. You keep thinking you can win it. You can't win it. I think things are a little different. Trump is very unpopular. You have a majority minority state by a significant margin. There's almost as many Latino descended Texans as there are European descended Texans. That's a big deal. And they were strong. I don't know if it was overwhelming, but double-digit support from Latinos for Tallarico. And I told you, by the way, that I thought that the predictions markets, which, by the way, acquitted themselves well, the predictions markets had, meaning Kalshi, the betting markets, call them what you will, but Kalshi and Polymarket acquitted themselves very well in that race, having Tallarico the favorite all the way through from the beginning till the end, even when the very, very strong pro-Crockett polls came out from the University of Houston, University of Texas. They moved the needle towards Crockett, but never brought, I don't believe ever Tallarico was below a 60-40, and it was more like 65 at his low point, maybe 63-37 favorite. And that went back up when some more polls came out recently that had Tallarico the likely winner. But the markets had it right. The betting markets did, and the pollsters, some of them have a lot of egg on their face, including me. I saw those polls. I tend to be pretty deferential to polls. I saw names like University of Houston, University of Texas. These are reputable institutions. Certainly, the University of Texas is a top flight, elite school, one of the best in the country. So yeah, UT says she's going to win. I think, well, maybe she probably will. That was incorrect. Here is what Silver has to say about the race. She defended Biden after his disastrous debate performance. She defended the pardon of Hunter Biden. And he points out, and I agree with this, Crockett nevertheless received the endorsement of Kamala Harris and the latest sign of Harris's terrible political instincts. I honestly do agree Harris has bad political instincts, but I also think, look, she's almost certainly running right for president in a couple of years, right? 28. She's almost certainly running for president. And one of the, I guess, truisms of politics is you have to keep your base. You have to keep your base. That the most important thing is your most loyal voters. You want them to stick by you. You don't take them for granted. I think there would have been some pushback from some Black women supporters of Harris and just punditry in general. Why didn't you endorse Crockett? If Crockett lost and it was very close, and there was a sense that an endorsement from Kamala Harris could have put Jasmine over the top, I think there would have been a lot of negative response to Crockett for that. To Harris for allegedly, supposedly costing Crockett the race. Now she won't have to hear that. She did her duty. She did endorse Jasmine Crockett. All right, 240-242-5646. Would love to talk to you about all of this. And by the way, good to see Donald and CPND in the chat. Great to see you folks. Also, Ken, nice to see you as well. I think, agree with you, CP. I like Tallarico as well. We're going to play an ad from Tallarico. One of the points that Silver made, and I know this is 2020 hindsight and it's Monday morning quarterbacking, but I want folks who may be questioning Tallarico's victory and wondering, will he really be stronger? Is this a rebuke of a Black woman? Is there some sexism, racism at play? If that's your thought, I really think there are some legit arguments to make that he will be a strong candidate and a better candidate. So, for example, this is from Silver. Crockett is known for schoolyard insults. She made fun of Greg Abbott, who's wheelchair bound, calling him Governor Hot Wheels. I mean, that isn't cool. It really isn't. And a lot of how Crockett was in the media was not about policy. It wasn't about how she would fight to make things a little better for the people in Texas. And I don't, you know me. I believe policy is king. Policy trumps all. That's what people should talk about most when they're running for office. There was a lot of drama that the Crockett campaign got itself involved in, and it wasn't. And she has to take some responsibility. Governor Hot Wheels didn't like that, didn't love that. I think what was worse, and it's interesting because Crockett did not get much pushback for this, and I looked to see. I would have thought that a feminist would have been very upset. I think it was inappropriate. I don't think she should have said this. I am a feminist. I consider myself one. Was what she called Marjorie Taylor Greene. She referred to her as a beach blonde, bad-built butch body, right? So butch body, that's lesbian, right? Butch, I don't think that's okay. I just don't. I don't see how that's okay. Now, I know folks were defending her. Well, Taylor Greene's obnoxious. Taylor Greene, this, that. It's a sexist trope, right? What Crockett said. It wasn't okay. And all of that would have hurt her. It would not have helped her in the general election. So I think it was a good decision. And I'm glad Texas voters made the one they did. I'm going to play an ad that Tallarico ran that I think really points out why I believe he will be a strong candidate. He will be a progressive candidate. Will he, govern as a progressive if he wins? Who knows? Or, vote as a progressive. Will he be to the left of Democratic leadership? Would he vote not for Chuck Schumer to be a Democratic leader? Gosh, I hope so. I don't know. This is another good news story from Texas. So Frederick Haynes here, and I want to give, look, this isn't going to be all about bashing Jasmine Crockett. This was her endorsed candidate to succeed her in Texas 30, which I don't know if she's 30 now. They renumber the districts when they did the gerrymandering. By the way, I had said that Crockett was leaving her seat in Congress to run for Senate because she had been gerrymandered out. That was not a true statement. I was wrong. I read that somewhere. That's a false statement. She would have almost certainly been reelected from that same Dallas County. Well, it's called Dallas County. That's where her base is. She would have almost certainly been reelected. That district was not, diluted, or maybe there was changed a little bit. The boundaries, there were some edges sawed off here and there, but she would have almost certainly prevailed. And if she didn't, she said, well, I was moved. My home was moved into another district, but still very close to the old one. Yes, and she could have run as an out of district congresswoman. She could have moved into the district. She could have run in the district where she was moved which was moved to where she was. She could have run there, and she would have probably won. So I guess this is to her credit. She didn't run for Senate because she had lost her job. She would have probably almost certainly been reelected. She did decide to run for Senate. I think probably she thought she would be the right person for that job. She wanted it, and she thought she'd be good at it. That's fine. She endorsed Frederick Haynes. This is a really good win. Frederick Haynes, AIPAC free. He ran, and Crockett was AIPAC free too, and I have some questions about that. She had gone to Israel. She did not support the Block the Bombs bill. So she does not. She's not a co-endorser. Haynes, it appears, is to the left. Now, Haynes was endorsed by Crockett. Haynes won. Haynes will be the next Congress member from a plus 30, plus 40 Democratic district, the one which Crockett previously represents now. But, I was like, well, is he really that far to the left? I was a little skeptical with the endorsement from Crockett not necessarily convincing me. But he was strongly supported by this new David Hogg super PAC, meaning Haynes. He was strongly supported by this new David Hogg super PAC. And one of their biggest, most important litmus tests is, are you prepared to say no to Israel? Are you prepared to say no to AIPAC? And obviously Haynes passed that test. Look at this. They also endorsed Nida Alam. Mention that. There's Nida Alam and Valerie Fouché. They endorsed Alam because she says no to all weapons to Israel. Fouché, by the way, has, I believe, is a co-sponsor of the Block the Bombs Act. Fouché, I've said this before, not terrible by any means, especially for a Democrat, but not ideal. I prefer Alam. Alam will go down to defeat, but that hasn't yet. Yeah, folks in the chat saying yes, no to AIPAC. Right, Haynes is good. This is good. This is a win. I give Crockett credit. She endorsed, I believe, the right candidate, Frederick Haynes. I'm glad she did. I'm glad he won. I'm glad he'll be taking her spot in Congress. And I'm glad Talarico, I think, will be able to really give the Republicans a run for their money, even if he doesn't ultimately prevail. Do want to urge you, hey, join me, 240-242-5646. Would love to talk to you. This piece, I got this in my email from Sirota, from The Lever. I don't always agree with Sirota. I think Sirota has been too much of a Democratic flack in the past. I know he criticizes Democrats. He says he was for force the vote, but he was kind of a skeptical, cynical supporter of force the vote. He took on Jimmy Dore, saying Jimmy's not a good voice for Democrats, for progressives, rather. Jimmy Dore says force the vote. Maybe we don't force the vote. He said, Sirota, we shouldn't force a Medicare vote. We should force Pelosi to agree to other concessions. I think he was wrong there. I think this was the opportunity in 2021 to really hold Pelosi's feet to the fire and really extract some important concessions from Democratic leadership. I don't think that happened. I think Sirota was running interference for House leadership in the Democratic Party. I have a huge problem with it. All that said, I like this piece. I think he does a real good job with it. It's not perfect. The big reason it's not perfect is because Sirota continues to center the Democratic Party as the way forward. That if we can just make the party better, if we can just elect good people, we can make our country good again. And I just don't agree with it. I don't think that the Democratic Party can only be a force for true good if it has on its left flank, a fox nipping at its heels, a wolf nipping at it constantly to keep it to the left, saying, if you don't stay with us, if you don't stay with us when it comes to war, opposition to it, when it comes to opposition to genocide, when it comes to opposition to ecocide and the billionaire class, if you don't do that, we're going to take you down. I think that's the only way we can see real change in the Democratic Party. And we need it. We need that change. We need something. We need an alternative, or we're really are doomed. And I will just, to prove that point, let's go to another California. We talked about Kamala Harris. Here's Gavin Newsom. And this is what Democrats do. They can't simply call out the evil of imperialism, of warmongering. When Trump actually sort of tried to promote peace, right, with Russia, they attacked him for that. So Newsom can't even really just simply say, let's keep our friggin' hands off of Iran. Let's worry about our own problems. Let's worry about what our allies, Israel, is doing. Not fret over what's happening in a country that's basically as far away from the United States as any country can be that's still in the northern hemisphere, right? I mean, Iran, if you stuck in the middle of the country, Kansas, and you stuck a pin right through the earth, but you kept it, above the equator, it might, I don't know exactly where it would come out, but I'm guessing maybe in Iran. Iran is really, really, really far away from us. I know there's oil there. That's important, but it shouldn't be. We should be deprecating the use of oil. Here's what Newsom's tweet And he got some criticism, people saying that he's defending regime change. I don't know. That may be too strong, but he kind of is, right? Maybe it's not. So Newsom starts off by attacking Iran. So how are you possibly going after Trump when the first thing you do is say you agree with what Trump's goal, right? Trump's goal is to get rid of the leadership of Iran. So what does Newsom say? The corrupt and repressive Iranian regime must never have nuclear weapons. And he doesn't stop there. You'd say, well, we just want to keep them from having nuclear weapons, which they don't have as far as we know. And by the way, that's a very debatable statement. I don't endorse that statement. But okay, let's just say, of course, we all wish nobody had nuclear weapons. But why Iran is singled out as the country that more than any other must never have nuclear weapons is kind of odd, since I believe Israel is considered to be a nuclear power state. They're a nuclear weaponized state. They have nuclear weapons. And they're a genocider, right? Israel is, I think, by any objective measure, a worse country than Iran, certainly in terms of what it's doing. But yet, Newsom starts with how bad Iran is. And then he says the leadership of Iran must go. Sure does sound like he's endorsing regime change. How do you position yourself as a critic of Trump? How do you position yourself as somebody who's going to do better, have better policies than Trump, if you're defending his goal? You may say, well, it's the wrong way to do it, and he should have gotten consent of Congress and this and that. But yeah, in the end, it's fine. Who cares? Who cares if, a few hundred or a few thousand Iranians are killed? And probably the ultimate number of dead is going to be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, million casualties or more as a result of our war on the people of Iraq. Iran is a much bigger country. Who does Newsom express concern for? Not the people in the Middle East. No, we're risking the lives of American service members and our friends. I guess that he means Israel. They're sure no friends of mine. He doesn't show any, does he? No, zero concern for the people that America's killing. It seems to me that if you're going to be a moral leader, you have to express this. President Trump is putting Americans at risk abroad because he's unpopular at home. That is true. I agree. As this unfolds, California stands with the Iranian American community in our state. Now, to be fair, I guess it is to be fair, but it's also to be accurate. Many in the Iranian diaspora hate the Ayatollah. They hate the theocracy. That's why they left Iran, because they were secular, they were middle class, they were affluent. They had it pretty good under the Shah. Yes, the Shah was a repressive tyrant. Yes, the Shah had torture rooms. But if you were in the upper crust, it was pretty damn good there. You had swimming pools. You want to wear a bikini, you can wear a bikini. Nobody's going to force you to wear like a sheet over your head. So yeah, I get that. But that doesn't mean that it's our responsibility, our job, our duty to take down one tyrant to the extent Khamenei was a tyrant, and install an American corporate tyrant. And I would note, I'm not going to accept all the demonization of the Iranian leadership. That comes from very biased sources. That comes from our CIA. That comes from our media. That comes from elites, billionaires, people who stand to gain if we engage in a regime change war. So I don't accept that. But even to the extent I do accept, I probably personally wouldn't want to live in Iran. The solution isn't to destroy the country. It isn't to chop off the head of every leader there. It's to work with them. It's to make things better. It's to use soft power, as they say, to improve the quality of life of the Iranian people. Obviously, that's not only of no moment to Trump. It's completely ignored because what he's doing will only make things worse. All right, 240-242-5646. I want to play, so Ken says things are going to get real interesting when the interceptors run out. Right, because Israel has a limited ability to intercept those Iranian missiles. And we saw the last time there was a hot war missile to surface type war where, Iran would launch those missiles. They can reach Israel from Iran. And after a while, Israel runs out of all the interceptors, the Iron Dome that we sent them. And then they start getting hit, and they've been hit. Yes, we need change. We absolutely need change. Newsom support for regime change, even if it's not absolutely overt, but it's clear sympathy for some type of effort to destroy the Iranian government, which is a disastrous policy, totally wrong-headed, misguided, worse for the Iranian people, but also will be bad for us. That's why we need change. Sirota in the lever says this guy, and he linked to this ad. So I wanted to play this ad because I have to say, I think it's really good. I really like what Tallarico says. In fact, it's what I would say, only maybe it's said better by a guy who's looks a lot better. He's a lot younger than I am anyway. 240-242-5646. But here's my but. There's a limit. It's an ad. He's trying to get you to vote for him. Does that mean he's going to govern? He's going to pursue the policy? When you're not a governor as a senator, you're a legislator. Is he going to legislate? Because he's running for Senate, right? If he's elected, is he going to legislate the way he says he's going to legislate? Let's hope we find out.
Billionaires don't just influence politicians, they own them. That's why I don't take corporate PAC money. It's why I fought to cap campaign contributions.
I want to stop it there for a second. So he starts off, he centers billionaires, doesn't like them. He doesn't want them to give campaign contributions. Incredibly important message because the Democrat Party is completely corrupted by billionaire money. So, why are they supporting genocide? Why haven't they passed Medicare for all? As Brianna Joy Gray said, we've already won the argument. Those are very popular policies. Americans don't want war, and they do want health care. So why don't we have it? Well, because of the billionaire money. So Tallarico goes right after that. And it's also a really popular message. So let's continue here.
In the Senate, I'll ban billionaires from making unlimited secret donations. I'll stop members of Congress from trading stocks, and I'll raise taxes on those at the top to fund tax cuts for the rest of us. I'm James Tallarico, and I approve this message because our government should work for all of us, not just billionaires.
Right, so I think it's a good message. It's 30 seconds. You can only say so much, but he's pretty clear. He says, I want to raise their taxes. He says, I will raise their taxes. I will ban. Now, you got to get a lot of other votes. But and that's why he won, I believe. Tallarico, Sirota centers Graham Plattner as much as anybody in his article, The Democratic Party's Moment of Reckoning. And I really want to play this. He some of it. I'm not going to play all of it. I could. But Sirota makes the point that not only does Plattner have a great message, Plattner by 30 points right now. This is how Democrats win. Not how we win if they really will pursue these policies. And again, jury's out. But that's how they win because this is what people want. But let me play this here from Plattner.
The only way to regain the trust of the American people as Democrats is to be radically different than what we've had. To really become there should be no such thing as a labor Democrat. That should just be being in the Democratic Party.
Welcome to
That's such a great message, right? Like that we have to be there for labor. The Democrats have, when I say we, he's saying we. I'm not, I don't consider myself right now a Democrat, although technically I am registered as a Democrat. So I can vote in the Maryland primary here. Such a good message. No such thing as a labor Democrat, he says. a Democrat is for labor. And there's a lot more really good stuff. I'm going to get to it in just a moment. But I thought what was also so interesting is the defensiveness from this host. I think it's Jon Favreau. I don't really ever watch Pod Save America. It's not my thing. But he really tries to defend Obama and his work in the Obama administration. And Sirota, to his credit, I believe Sirota was an Obama guy. Sirota, called for the support for Obama. I give Sirota a lot of credit, at least for writing this article, although he doesn't fess up to his role. Let me see if I can get this in the right spot. All right, let's see if we can get the video here for you. Okay, there we go. A little bit of problems here. There we go. All right, let's play the clip.
About that a little more. Like, what do you think happened? Because Hancock County, where Sullivan is, went for Obama by 17 points in 2012.
Yep.
And, obviously, I've heard you say, and I get it, that the Democratic Party has become too tied to corporate interests. Like, where specifically has the party gone wrong in the last decade in terms of policies, decisions, positions? Are there things you can point to where you're like, that's where they...
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely to the financial crisis. Bailing out the banks, bailing out the big industries, letting people walk away with gold or jump away with golden parachutes, while those banks still turned around and foreclosed on people's homes, while the average working person saw their retirement savings just disappear. And then we watched the political apparatus back up the people that broke the thing in the first place. Yeah. I think that was huge. That broke a lot of trust. And then further on, like the...
So I was in...
Someone's talking, Favreau really doesn't like that answer. And I just find this so, look at the slick back hair. Right there, he personifies, I think, and look, your opinion's your opinion. You look however you want, right? But just that look, I think, personifies what Americans find so off-putting in the Democratic Party and the Democratic leadership. The shiny face, the perfect hair. He just isn't in touch. He's clearly out of touch with how I think most Americans are. And I want to contrast that to Jasmine Crockett, with the big hair and the eyelashes. That is not an out of touch look for a lot of people. But this guy's really out of touch. And the way he talks too, there's a certain style to his accent. I think has got to drives people crazy. I want to play a little more. I want to play this back again because we'll play it again.
I want to talk about that a little more. Like, what do you think happened? Because
it's like, well, what do you think happened? It's just the question itself seems to me so out of touch, with so many Americans having medical bankruptcies. You don't have that anywhere else in the world. And of course, the financial crisis is huge. There's so many other examples supporting genocide, the inability to respond directly to questions, Kamala Harris's failure to do that. But I thought Plattner, and I wouldn't have answered, I don't think, if I was asked this question, I would now. The financial crisis is what really turned so many Americans off of the Democratic Party. But I think it was the right answer. I think he's clearly more in touch. Obviously, he's more in touch than I am, and a million times more in touch than Favreau. When I look at the comments in Halitics, there's so much anger at the Democratic Party, people struggling just to get by. And you have folks like this who were there right inside the room, and they cannot fathom what the hell they did wrong.
Policies, decisions, positions, are there things you can point to where you're like, that's where they...
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely to the financial crisis. Bailing out the banks, bailing out the big industries.
I have a friend, Chucky, if you're watching, love to hear from you. And in certain ways, like, he looks like Graham Plattner now. He doesn't have the beard, but just like the T-shirt, he's a little bit, jacked a little bit, although I think Chucky's more jacked than Plattner's. There's a little bit heavier looking Plattner is. But, with the tats, Plattner's got tats. This is a look that resonates. People feel, oh, there's somebody who's like me. But it's not just the look, what he says. That's so much more important. Americans voted for Barack Obama, even though he's elegant, he's elite looking, slender, looks great in a suit, always well dressed, hair, always. People say, fine, he's going to support the policies that will make my life better. He wanted a public option. He ran us for a public option. He voted against endless war. Now here you got both with Plattner. He's saying all the right things. He also looks the look. Will he govern to the left? I trust him. Maybe that's crazy. Fool me 3 times. Shame on me 3 times, but I trust this guy.
Walk away with gold or jump away with golden parachutes while those banks still turned around and foreclosed on people's homes. While the average working person saw their retirement savings just disappear. And then we watched the political apparatus back up the people that broke the thing in the first place. I think that.
So that's all correct. Now, I'm not going to play Favreau's response. He's really pissed off about that. Oh, well, we had no choice and it was put in place by Bush. That's a load of crap. They could have held up money that went to the banks at any point. They could have threatened to withhold all the money and said, fine, go bankrupt. Favreau says, well, we couldn't let it. It would have destroyed the whole economy. No, the banks go into bankruptcy. They go into receivership. The federal government takes over, and you bail out the creditors, the bank's creditors, right? You bail out the depositors. You bail out the mortgage holders. You just don't bail out the actual corrupt institutions that created the problem in the first place. And I wouldn't necessarily bail out the creditors. I mentioned the creditors. Well, you extend credit to the bank. Maybe you lend the bank. Now, if you're a mortgage, if you may be, you're a depositor, you're actually a creditor. You're giving the bank credit, and you're saying you got to pay me back. But so to that extent, yes. But a big creditor like a Goldman Sachs, no. The folks that knew what they were doing, who could look at the books and say, well, we can keep this, the tulip mania crisis going a little longer and profit from it, and then we'll get out. No, you don't give them a penny. I said I trust Plattner, but I only trust him so far. Once you get elected, once you get into that Congress or Senate, once the lobbyists start knocking on your door day after day, it's hard to say no. It's hard to resist those blandishments. The way you have to keep a Plattner in line is the voters have to be willing to, at the drop of a hat, elect someone to the left of him if he doesn't stay progressive. And the best way, the way you do that is by having another institution, a progressive, a left-wing institution like the Green Party that's right there to call him out at every moment, to keep him honest. Otherwise, it's just too easy. It's just too easy to say yes to the all the enticements that are there for you if you're willing to betray working class Americans. Just too easy to do that. All right, here's the guy, Butch Ware. Here's the Green Party. See, and this is why I have a problem with Sirota. Sirota doesn't talk about Butch Ware. I had a problem with Current Affairs. Current Affairs mentioned Butch Ware when they were talking about California and progressives, but they really kind of misstated his record a little bit, and they got bogged down in some identity politics nonsense. Butch Ware says exactly. California primary, June 2nd. Please, if you're in California, if you're registered to vote in California, please vote for him. It's not like, I hate the argument, well, if I vote for him, I'm going to help. You're not helping any Republicans. You're not helping any Republicans. I mean, you got a bunch of flawed choices in the Democratic Party who are running. You got Katie Porter, flawed choice. You've got Antonio Villaraigosa, flawed choice. You got Xavier Becerra, who I would have thought I'd like, flawed choice. This is the answer, California.
A policy like saying we're going to resolve the homelessness crisis in the state of California by building more housing. No, that's just more handouts to developers, which is what the Dems have been doing from the beginning.
Which I really appreciate that message. Oh, I thought there wasn't that ad there. It's just like the Affordable Care Act, right? We're going to guarantee you health care, or we're going to provide you health care by giving more money to the people who are denying you health care, right? We're going to give more money to the gatekeepers, to the death panel impanelers, right? You impanel the death panel impanelers because they impanel the death panels that decide whether you get life-saving medication or not and how long they're going to keep you alive. So what we're saying, hey, we don't need to buy off, give more money to these developers. And I thought, is that right? Do I agree with that? Let's listen to Ware explain.
Right now, we have 20 open housing units for every person that's sleeping on the street in the state of California. What we need to do is to have a housing first policy. Everybody eats before anybody gets seconds.
I love that. I just had to stop that. Everybody eats before anybody gets seconds. That's my statement is what? Everyone has enough. No one has too much, right? Everyone has enough. No one has too much. Well, that's exactly what Butch Ware is saying. Everybody eats before anybody gets seconds. We got a lot of housing. We got all sorts of homes that are only occupied for a month or two, a couple months a year. Apartments. No, you don't. No. Those, we're going to have those occupied, right? Then we'll start worrying about, people getting their seconds. I just could not agree more with that message. I love it. Now, the best way, the most effective way to guarantee that, to me, you got to raise taxes on the billionaires. Because as long as they have the money, they're just going to keep buying more and more homes. You got to take it away from them. But Butch Ware wants to do that. This is the answer in California.
Right.
Right. So people are just holding on to these properties, and a lot of them are now being held by BlackRock and these other investment firms, tax the hell out of them, and then buy them for the state, and then refurbish those as affordable housing and as housing for people who are currently unhoused.
You're saying that right now,
By the way, such a popular message too. I mean, this is how you win, and this is how we win. Now, people say, well, we just need to win. Yesterday when I had Arlen on, and he and I disagree on a lot, and I hate to do this with him not here, but I get the sense from him that his goal is just to defeat Republicans. His goal is just to defeat Democrats. That's not my goal. My goal is to elect good people. My goal is to elect people who are going to make life better for Americans and for all of us, to save our nation, right, from being this murderous, thuggish, imperialist monster. That's my goal. And just electing Adam Schiff or Katie Porter ain't going to do it. It ain't going to do it. Just a few more clips for you. Actually, two women. We haven't played women clips, so clips of women. And I wanted to get them in. By the way, kind of what would you say it's a integrated co-ed group that I put on my slide deck. And I know that's sort of like a DEI thing. Maybe some people don't like it. I actually think it is relevant. I think it's important. We do want our politics, do we not? We want our legislatures. We want our leaders to reflect us as a country, who we are. I think that's really important. That doesn't mean we elect people because they check a box. We don't vote for Jasmine Crockett because she says, if you don't vote for me, you're racist. You vote for Cori Bush because she was a really good congresswoman who stood up to Israel, who prioritized poor, struggling, working people in her community. You vote for Kat Abu Ghazaleh, not because she's young, but because her priorities are our priorities: environmentalism, an end to support for Israel. And I think you get a better overall government when you have lots of identities within the government, but those are identities of people who have demonstrated a commitment to poor, struggling, working class people, to peace, to the environment. I think that's the way forward. 240-242-5646. Let me play this. CP loves CB. You're like my I don't know as they say. I don't know. You're like my sibling from another parent, right? You and I seem to be very simpatico, which I really appreciate. I love the comments as well. Thank you. The Illinois primary, just 13 days away now. March 17. I like Kat Abu Ghazaleh. I like her, but I can't really pronounce her name very well. Abu Ghazaleh. Kat Abu Ghazaleh. Here she is. Latest ad. This was just posted, I think today. Or yes, it was yesterday. It was yesterday. Here we go.
There are 2 weeks until my election, and AIPAC has spent $150,000 to create the worst attack ad against me I have ever seen. Let's watch it.
Kat Abu Ghazaleh says she's a progressive champion. But what do we really know about Kat?
What do we really know about Kat? If only she was a journalist with a well-documented career, a federal indictment, and a deposition from Elon Musk to tell us what she really thinks.
She moved to Illinois just 2 years ago.
I should note that this ad is only being served to people from 18 to 34 years old. Not only is me moving to Illinois a well-documented fact, but I have huge news about young people. A lot of them move. I'm not sure this is the best line of attack. Also, why do these pictures look like an in memoriam for me?
Kat Abu Ghazaleh supported Marco Rubio for president.
Wait, hold on. Enhance. Yeah, look at that date. I was 16. They are literally quoting my defunct high school newspaper. For some context, I have devoted my career to de-radicalization and anti-extremism efforts. I grew up Reagan Republican. I've been very open about this. In fact, we made a comic book about it for our mailers. I was never behind Trump, and so I was like, maybe Marco Rubio is the solution. But like many things that 16-year-olds say, that's idiotic. Also, just look at these pins real quick. Why did the AI give me Mar-a-Lago face? And I know my last name is a little long, but come on. I should also note that this does not have an AI disclaimer on it, which is against the law.
Right, so I thought that was really clever. I thought she shows a lot of, intelligence, moxie in that ad. But what's relevant is she's taking on AIPAC and they're taking her on. And they say, by their friends ye shall know them. But I think you can also sometimes say, by their enemies ye shall know them. I made the case in 2016 for voting for Jill Stein in the general. Now, I certainly supported Bernie in the primary, the Democratic primary, but I made the case for voting for Jill Stein in part because Hillary had gotten so much money from big banks. The big banksters supported her. Now, they also supported Trump. It was kind of weird because a lot of the CEOs of the biggest banks actually supported Hillary. She had rubbed shoulders with them. She had given those Goldman Sachs speeches. A lot of the lower level, the traders, the mid-level executives at big banks actually preferred Trump. I don't understand all that. I don't really care. But the point I made was Hillary got tons of money from the big banks. She got tons of money from also fossil fuel companies. And I said, hey, by their friends, ye shall know them, also by their enemies. These people are trying to bring down Kat. These bad people are trying to bring down Kat Abu Ghazaleh. She's probably pretty good. When these really bad people, like the banksters, are supporting Hillary, and that tells me you want to look in a different direction. So sometimes it really matters. Now, that you may say, well, that goes against your partisanship because you were saying you shouldn't support, or at least the fact that Crockett was such a hyper-partisan Dem is maybe a strike against her. But now you're saying, well, if you go after AIPAC, if you're a partisan, no, AIPAC does really, really bad things. And she's specifically pointing out that they don't like her because she's against the genocide. It's a little different. Crockett supported Biden, who also was doing really bad things and was also incompetent. So it wasn't partisanship just because she was anti-Trump. And to the extent she is anti-Trump, it's just anti-Trump. It's not, well, these policies, not completely anyway, these policies are terrible. We shouldn't engage in them, which is why I like her successor, Haynes, because he did get the endorsement of the Stop AIPAC group. He clearly gets that in some cases, having the right enemies tells you a lot about a person. So we can hope, that some of these folks are really going to do a good job. Let me just end with Cori Bush. I always liked Cori Bush. I thought she was a very, perhaps the most progressive squad member of all. I think that's a big reason she was targeted by AIPAC, for sure. I would note that she was strong on Medicare for all. She was very strong on anti-poverty programs, which, makes sense given that she came from a impoverished district in St. Louis. But she also was one of the strongest pro-environment voices in Congress as well. Here she is.
I believe that the seat was stolen, and stolen in what I mean by that is the people of St. Louis did not make the decision based upon truth on what they believe would be, someone else coming in that was going to do a better job, get things done quicker. They made the decision to elect someone else based on lies, deceit, a bunch of ads in a total of 15 million, including AIPAC and their affiliates and their allies. $15 million spent on the airwaves, spent on radio, internet, saying that Cori Bush, she's basically mean to Joe Biden. She's not a real Democrat. Just spewing lies and misinformation. And there was just so much, $15 million in the St. Louis media market. It was really heavy. But the thing is, I was doing the work for my community. I was doing the work for the district. I was doing the work for this country. And I was doing exactly what I said that I would do when I was running, even before I started running. So I'm running again because the person in the seat he's not meeting the moment. And he's someone that was basically placed there to quiet Cori Bush, placed there to stop a movement, placed there because they didn't want someone speaking out for the people of Palestine, speaking out for human rights and civil rights. They didn't want someone who was coming against Project 2025. They didn't want that loud voice. But that's what they're about to get again.
All right, so I like a lot of that ad. I didn't like the fact that Cori Bush started by criticizing the voters, right? Because she said they didn't know what they were voting for. They were fed a pack of lies and they believed it. I don't think that was the tone I would have taken. I don't think you ever want to criticize the electorate. I thought once she started going after West Bell, going after AIPAC, she doesn't ever mention West Bell's name, that's fine. When she started going after AIPAC and started talking about what she did, that's great. I love that. I think you always want to talk about how you are going to effectuate change that will make life better. You will make material improvements in the quality of your constituents' lives. I think that's how you win elections. I think she started to do that at the end of that. But I just wanted to bring it up because I think candidates do make a mistake sometimes when they bring up the alleged mistakes or fail. Now, look, of course she thinks the voters were wrong. Of course she doesn't. She says, well, why did you let West Bell sell you a bill of goods about me? Obviously, that's how she feels. But I think you do better by saying, hey, I'm going to, I really was angry at a lot of what West Bell said about me, which wasn't true. But I didn't do a good enough job proving to the voters that he was wrong. And that's why he won. But now he's shown who he is. He's not a Democrat. He kicked people out of his. He had people arrested. He had police, beat up protesters at his town hall because they didn't agree with his pro-genocide policies. We can do better. We will do better. That would be my message, perhaps. And I bring that because I think it's really important, again, that Democrats focus on, and all candidates, on how they're going to improve the lives of the people in their district. I would vote for Cori Bush in a heartbeat. I hope she wins. I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough. All right, that's going to do it for me. Thanks to all the. Let me just, before I go, here's from Both Parties Are Traitors, because I love this. At Halitics, with all due respect, Kat Abu Ghazaleh is running as a Dem, and while she may be sincere, we've seen what happens when we elect Dems. It doesn't matter what a candidate's for when party is against policy. Yes, 100%. That's why I centered also in this video Butch Ware, because he is a Green. He is not a Democrat. And yes, Graham Plattner can say all the right things. Barack Obama said a lot of the right things, and he still wasn't a great president, in my view. And it was a disappointment. And it's cost the party and cost our country dearly because of the betrayals of working class Americans and middle class Americans too, which we talked about early in the program. All of what you're saying is correct. Both parties are traitors, 100%. That's why we absolutely have to be prepared to not only to vote out a Democrat the second they betray us, but also to have a watchdog. And I would prefer to vote for the watchdog in any event, Green Party candidates when they're available and they're out there. Obviously, Butch Ware I center today. Andy Ellis in my state, Maryland, is a great option in my view. All right, that is going to do it. And again, thank you to all for commenting. Please, if you haven't yet done so, please subscribe. Any kind of engagement, the chat, I love. Any comments are great. Likes, dislikes, what have you. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you all so much for being part of Halitics. And let me say, enjoy your afternoon.